Constance is a college student who often feels like the unluckiest person in the world. Last year, she failed her university entrance exam and her driving test, and she also experienced various other misfortunes. Her parents work as vegetable sellers in the market, and Constance sometimes helps them to earn some pocket money. This year, Constance is determined to try applying as a new student again. However, it seems that her father has lost confidence in funding her education because he feels that she will fail the entrance exam once again. With full confidence, Constance declared that she would succeed this time. Armed with a newspaper ad, she went to Paris to take the student exam and is now looking for a boarding room. She visited a house that offered a room for rent and met an old man who seemed less than friendly, named Henri. Henri was unaware that his child had placed an ad to rent out the room. When Constance asked about the room's amenities, Henri answered carelessly and seemed indifferent. Nevertheless, Constance patiently dealt with him because the rent was affordable and the facilities were complete, even though Henri was reluctant to provide further explanations. Before leaving, Henri asked Constance to fill out a questionnaire and agree to various rules. Finally, Constance agreed to rent the room. After Constance had just finished some personal time with her boyfriend, she received a call from Henri, informing her that she could now move into the rented room. The next day, Constance was accompanied by her mother and younger sibling to the station, where her mother left some chocolates for Henri as a token of gratitude. Upon arriving at Henri's house, the old man kept grumbling but quickly stopped after Constance handed him the chocolates. At night, Constance accidentally overheard a phone conversation between Henri and his son, which revealed tension in their relationship. Henri noticed Constance as he hung up the phone, and although Constance had grown accustomed to anger, he still unleashed his frustration on her. The next day, when Constance was feeling bored with her studies, she played the piano that Henri had previously forbidden her to touch. When Henri came home and saw her playing the piano, he was furious and demanded that she pay 2 full months of rent in advance. Of course, Constance didn't have that much money and pleaded for more time. To soften Henri's heart, Constance offered to help clean the house, but Henri preferred that she help separate his son from his wife, as he didn't like his new daughter-in-law. At first, Constance refused because she didn't want to ruin someone's marriage. However, Henri explained that her only task was to flirt with his son. If successful, Constance would get 3 months of free rent, but she bargained for 6 months free. Henri agreed to the terms, provided she truly succeeded in her task. Living in a new city naturally requires a significant amount of money. While Constance was out for a walk, she saw a job vacancy ad at a cafe. She went inside and tried to apply for the job. At the cafe, she met a bartender named Matthew, who asked her to come back the next day to meet the boss. The following morning, just after Constance had woken up, she heard the doorbell ring. It turned out to be Paul, Henri's son, who had come to visit. Constance intentionally stayed in her pajamas as part of her strategy to catch his attention. As the first step in her mission, Constance was friendly to Paul. She offered him coffee and invited him for a casual chat in the kitchen. Paul, who turned out to be as talkative as his father, still showed concern for Henri's health despite their strained relationship. Paul asked Constance to take care of his father's health and ensure that Henri took his medication twice a day. As Paul was getting ready to leave, Henri arrived, and they immediately got into an argument. Before Paul left, Henri invited him to have dinner together at the house the following Sunday. After Paul left, Henri praised Constance for her initiative in flirting with Paul by wearing her pajamas. The next day, Constance started her job as a waitress at the cafe where she applied the day before. Although the pay wasn't great, she performed her duties with dedication. Days passed, and the university entrance exams began. However, in the middle of the exam, Constance felt unable to complete the test paper. Sunday arrived, the day Constance would have dinner with Paul and Henri. Since morning, she had been busy cooking for the event. Paul arrived with his wife, Valerie. Despite Valerie's presence, Constance still tried to flirt with Paul discreetly. During the meal, tension between Henri and Paul resurfaced. This time, they argued about the piano that Constance had played, which turned out to be Henri's late wife's piano. Amid the argument, Valerie asked Constance to play the piano, and strangely, Henri allowed it this time. As Constance played the piano beautifully, Henri became emotional, his eyes welling up with tears as he remembered his wife. Henri then quickly left the room. A few days later, Constance went to the university to check the results of the entrance exams. Unfortunately, she had failed to get accepted into the university. To cope with her sadness, Constance visited a club to drink and dance. The next day, she woke up feeling unwell. Coincidentally, Valerie came over and saw Constance vomiting. She quickly called Henri to the house. Constance told them about her repeated failures in various things. They tried to encourage her and suggested that she focus on the things she enjoyed, especially in music, as Henri believed she had a talent for it. Henri then asked Constance to play his late wife's piano. Constance played a song she had composed herself, which made Henri even more convinced of her musical talent. That night, Henri showed deep concern for Constance. He searched for information about music schools online, printed it out, and placed it in the mailbox. The next morning, Constance found the leaflet in the mailbox. Henri mentioned that this might be an opportunity for her and suggested that she try applying to the music school. Although Henri was supportive, Constance still felt pessimistic and doubtful about being accepted into the school, especially after her father commented that her song was just average. However, Henri emphasized that failure often happens because we are afraid to face it. A little later, following Henri's suggestion, Constance went to the swimming pool. There, she happened to run into Paul. Constance, who had been observing Paul through Henri's stories, acted as if their meeting was purely coincidental. They then decided to walk home together. Throughout the walk, Constance, having understood Paul's character, skillfully engaged in their conversation and highlighted their many similarities, making Paul appear increasingly interested in her. That night, Constance went to a club with Matthew. At the club, another DJ, after noticing Constance, became interested and invited her over. That night, Constance ended up going home with the DJ. A few weeks passed, and Constance told Matthew that the DJ never contacted her after their passionate night. Matthew said that the DJ was just a playboy and advised Constance not to take the relationship seriously. Later, they were surprised by Paul's arrival at the cafe where they worked. Paul revealed that he and his wife were having serious problems and had separated. Constance and Matthew then invited Paul to take his mind off things by going to a club. At the club, Constance saw the DJ she had been with, now with another woman. Feeling jealous, Constance quickly left the club, and Paul drove her home. Before getting out of the car, Constance, who was feeling down, allowed Paul to hug her. But realizing that she was just carrying out her mission, she pulled away to prevent anything further from happening. After talking with Constance, Paul became even more convinced that she had feelings for him too. The next day, Paul faced Valerie's anger. She had tried calling him all night without success. When she got into the car, Valerie was shocked to find a woman's jacket, which made her even angrier, and she decided to contact her lawyer immediately to file for divorce. As the days passed, Paul kept trying to contact Constance, but she seemed distant and ignored him. Meanwhile, Henri expressed his desire for Constance to audition for the music school mentioned in the leaflet from some time ago. Constance replied that she would need a recommendation letter, but Henri had already prepared all the necessary documents, so all Constance had to do was take the exam. Nevertheless, Constance remained stubborn and reluctant to go to the music audition. The next day, Paul was called by Valerie to her parents' house. Paul received the news that Valerie was now pregnant, a piece of news that led them to decide not to separate, as they were finally expecting a child after 10 years of waiting. However, when Paul informed Henri about the news, Henri was still unhappy, and they got into an argument. At work, Constance received a call from her father, who had found out that Constance had been lying about attending college. Her father asked Constance to come home immediately and help run their vegetable stall. Constance then revealed to Henri that she had to return home to help her parents, even though she was reluctant. Constance had no choice but to fulfill her parents' request. The next day, Paul and Valerie visited Henri's house to officially announce Valerie's pregnancy. Surprisingly, Henri had shown a change in attitude. He no longer insisted on keeping his son away from Valerie and seemed to have accepted the situation with more grace. Before Constance left, Henri gave her some final advice, encouraging her to keep pursuing her dreams and not give up. Constance then approached her father and made a difficult-to-refuse statement. She promised that if she failed the exam this year, she would keep trying until she succeeded, because she believed that music was her path in life. Seeing Constance's determination, her father finally understood and allowed her to pursue her dreams, saying that if she ever got tired, she could come back home. With that decision, Constance chose to stay and not return home with her parents. She spent her time practicing and composing music at Henry's house. Finally, the long-awaited music audition began. Constance left for London to attend the audition and would be away from Henri for 2 weeks. Upon arriving in London, Constance went through various selections and interviews. When the anticipated moment arrived, Constance's focus wavered after receiving the sad news that Henri had passed away. A few days later, when Constance returned to Henry's house, she found Paul packing up. Paul handed her a letter that Henri had written the day before he died. The letter contained words of encouragement for Constance, urging her to rise above her failures and keep striving until she achieved her goals. As the film concludes, we thank you for your attention and for watching.